We're just a mediator. We're just trying to put a buyer and a seller together. We don't have a dollar in the race, other than just trying to put two guys together. We sell a car about every 30 seconds at a dealer auto auction. Just be a champion one time a year after you win this deal. You got to live every day like you're a champion and be a kind person, be somebody that people want to be and do business with.
The seller's excited. The sellers want to sell. The buyers want to buy.
100%.
I mean, it works for everybody.
Paid, all in, all done. Being paid, I'm going to be paid, I'm going to be paid. So 700 icon buys.
All right, welcome everybody to the Campbell Cars podcast. Today I got a real treat for you, Nick McMichen. How we doing, brother?
Good, brother. Thanks for having me on, man.
Man, look at that trophy. Let's don't even hold back. Let's give it to us, man. There's a big old trophy in the picture, brother.
Well,
What's that all about?
2 weekends ago, I went and I competed at the World Automobile Auctioneers Championship. It's hosted by the NAAA. I've been competing since 2012, since I was 18 years old. So this year's contest was at Manheim, Phoenix, and Phoenix, Arizona. So I went and competed there, came in second place in the Ringman division, and then competed with my uncle in a team division and got second place in that also.
Nice.
That's what
Playing with the big dogs. So like,
yeah,
how many guys were in the competition?
In the auctioneering division, there was a little over 50, I believe. In the Ringman division, I want to say right around 20. And then in the teams, right around 15.
Nice. And this is, how do you even get in that? Do you got to qualify? You got to get invited? What's that look like?
You have to be a dealer, auto auctioneer, working dealer car auctions. Anybody's more than welcome to come and enter if you do a dealer car auction throughout, your weekly work. So you just enter, there's an entry fee. I believe it's broke down $250, $500, and $750. So $750 being for the auctioneers, $500 for the teams, and $250 for the ringman. I believe that's it. Don't quote me on that. And you just send in your application. You can get a sponsor. So this year I had a South Florida Auto Auction and Orlando Longwood Auto Auction as my sponsors. And went down there and had a good time, man. It was fun. It was a good contest.
Do you win any money besides the trophy?
If you come in first, you do. Yeah, if you come in first, I believe the breakdown is, again, $7,500 for auctioneers. I want to say $3,500 for the teams and then $35 for the ringman, something around there.
The first time I ever remember anything about this was in Kansas City. One of our auctioneers back then, this is 25, 30 years ago, I remember like before the auction where they announced, like they're doing their morning announcements, they announced he'd won the World Championship Auctioneer, and I didn't even know they had a competition. I think actually two of our guys from there, Shane Ratliff.
Oh, 100%. He's one of my idols.
Yeah, so.
If I could ever sound like Shane, man, I'd be doing something right.
And then Mike Lambert.
Yes, sir. I know Mr. Mike also. I believe he was actually the first champion to ever win at the World Automobile Auctioneers Championship. I'm pretty sure he was the very first one. And a small world story, my wife, actually, her grandpa started the contest. So, Ron Reed, his dad started the contest, and that was their very first auctioneer champion was Mike Lambert. Heck of a hand, man. Mr. Mike can rattle with the best of them.
See, I did not know that, man. It's a small world.
It's a big industry, but a small, very, very small, tight-knit community, The car business is pretty tight.
Yeah, and especially the auctioneering side of it, because, I grew up in a horse auction. Me and my dad started a horse auction when I was 12. And, growing up and then getting in high school and stuff, I kind of started getting more into cars. And one of our auctioneers, he actually did car auctions too.
Okay.
And I remember like my very first car deal I remember that I made good money on was he bought a car at the car auction. He drove it down to our horse auction, and me and my buddy bought it from him, and then we went and sold it. And yeah, our split on it was like I'd been working a job at UPS and making $1,100 a month salary. This tells you how long ago that was. And my split on the profit, we made $2,200 on the car, so my split was $1,100. I said, dude, I'm done. I'll never do anything else again. I'm in this car business.
They had you hooked then.
Yeah, but yeah, and that was kind of the easy transition for me, as I noticed a lot. An auction's an auction. The horses got four legs, the cars
Mm-hmm.
got four wheels. But a lot of the auctioneers, they do cattle auctions, horse auctions, car
Mm-hmm.
auction, estate sales.
Yes,
So
sir.
so how did, what was your background? Like where did you first get introduced to the auction business?
So through my uncle Blake McDaniel, he was working a bunch of horse auctions down in South Alabama, and I was probably 16, 17 when I started hanging out with him, and went down to see my dad one summer, and he took me to an auction and started. I knew how to ride horses growing up because I had a horse, but he taught me how to really ride, and taught me how to go in, and he would have four or five in the auction, and I'd clean them up and ride them through the auction for him. Well, finally, I got a little older and got tired of doing that, and he set me up on the auction block with him, and that's when he started teaching me, the auction process and how to call bids. And I'd go down the road practicing and all that good stuff. So yeah, came from a horse background, doing a little cattle. We traded on probably 15 mama cows at one time, and so it was a good time, man. It was a good learning process. So yeah, I have a lot to thank. I have to thank my uncle a lot for that. He definitely got me into it.
That's interesting. I did not know that because I mean that's was me at our horse auction. Every horse that came in, because I used to rodeo when I was younger too. Dude, every horse that came in, even if it was just running on the loose, my dad threw me on it or made me get on it. And most of the time, it was like a rodeo.
Yeah.
Uh, Dude, I always said like I never got bucked off, and even in competition, it was like growing up in that environment where you got all those people watching you. Like the last thing you want to do is get bucked off, get embarrassed. So, dude,
100%.
yeah, I learned how to ride, dude. I just get a main hold, no saddle, no bridle, no nothing, just bareback jump on them. And dude, some of them, they just come unglued and they'd go to the ceiling, boy, but I'd ride them.
Good times.
Yeah, that's how I got my start.
I got you, man.
But yeah,
But yeah, the
so
the transition going from like you said, livestock into cars, it's a pretty, it's the auction process is. It doesn't matter if you're doing cars, antiques, livestock, whatever. The auction process is pretty much similar in every genre.
yeah. So you were how old when you got in that teenager, right? When you were working with Blake?
Yes, sir. I was 16, 17. We got our first car auction, I believe, when I was 18, 2010. And we got a one-lane car auction in Wetumpka, Alabama, right outside of Montgomery, Alabama. Dealers Auto Exchange, Dealers Auto Auction. That's what it was called, Dealers Auto Auction of Montgomery, and that's where we got our start.
Blake was calling it, and you were ringing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I was working the ground for him. There was two auctioneers, one Kim Bradley, and then Blake, my uncle, and then there was two other ringmen that helped teach me a lot. They were car dealers actually, but they worked the ring also. One guy's name I believe was Tom Hartzog, and the other guy's his name was Joey. I can't remember his last name, but his first name was Joey. And man, we'd
Yeah.
have fun. I didn't know nothing. I still don't know nothing, but they were nice to me and took me, and taught me what to do, what not to do. It was fun. It was good times. And then from there, I
Yeah, go
believe we
ahead.
got our from there, I believe we got our next big car auction. It would have been ABC Birmingham, and then the rest is history. We just got into the cars and slowly started getting out of the livestock. Blake stayed into the cattle deal for a while, and he did some LMA contests, which is the Livestock Marketing Association World Livestock Auctioneering Contest. He did some of those for a couple years, but now I think he does strictly cars. I do strictly cars, some classic car sales and some equipment sales.
So how old are you now?
I am 34, I believe. I try not to count no more, man. After hitting 30, everything seems like it's just flying by a lot quicker than it was.
So 34 now, and you started when you were a teenager, so you got, about 20 years in.
Close to it.
At what point did you, so, for the audience, that's part of doing my podcast. Number one is everybody's got a story. So, I love hearing people's stories, and I've even known you for a while, and I didn't even know these parts about you. You know what I mean? So I love hearing the story because what I want to for the audience is to show people that may have thought, hey, I never thought about being a ringman, or I never thought about being a car auctioneer, or I never thought about getting in the car business, right?
Hmm.
So I'm here to tell, have people tell their stories, how they got in the business, and then we'll cover like the technical aspects of what you do. So kind of explain the progression because we talked about Ringman, we've talked about auctioneers. Um, and there's a progression to it. You just don't jump into the business and become an auctioneer,
No,
right?
sir. No, sir. Not at all. Especially in the contract world. There is other auction methods that you can jump in, start your own auction business, do online auctions or some estates or get your real estate license. You can do it by yourself. A lot of guys apprentice, depending on what state you're in, you have to be a licensed auctioneer, not to be a ringman, but to be an auctioneer, you have to be licensed. And sometimes you have to apprentice for 2 years, or you can go to auction school. And it's usually about a 3 week course. And you have to do so many hours to get your license through that, and then that'll knock off a year of apprentice, or you don't have to apprentice at all, just depending on what state you're in. Florida's either you go to auction school and you don't have to apprentice, or you don't go to auction school and you do have to apprentice. I went to auction school in 2014, Worldwide College of Auctioneering, and prior to that I'd already been ringing for 4 years, so working the ground for multiple dealer auto auctions throughout the week, and honing my craft and learning before I ever went to auction school in Mason City, Iowa is where I went to Worldwide College of Auctioneering.
Yeah, because I
Oh,
thought
excuse me.
about going to auctioneer school once, and my path just happened to be I got into the dealer side of it. But I remember
I
as a
mean,
kid.
all honesty, man. I mean, I believe it would be good for some dealers to go to auction school, just so they kind of understood what we do. Especially at the car auctions. A lot of guys think we make commission or something like that. We're not. We're contract labor. We're usually paid by the day, so a set pay rate, and we're just a mediator. We're just trying to put a buyer and a seller together. I mean, we don't have a dollar in the race. Other than just trying to put two guys together. And so it'd be probably beneficial if some dealers did go to auction school, especially the younger guys, or took a course. Like I know you have some courses out there guys can take.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff would be beneficial to anybody, especially younger, newer, not even younger, but just newer people into the business.
Well, and that's kind of leads me into two things I was getting ready to say. Number one, when I was a kid, I would go with my dad and my grandpa. We'd go to cattle sales and horse sales. And when you're new to it, it's like when an auctioneer, especially a good one that's got a fast, good chatter, the
Mm-hmm.
normal person, when they first hear him, they're like, what is he saying? And I remember as a little kid, this tells you how old I am. I had a tape recorder with cassette tapes, and it was one of those little handheld ones. And I took it to the auction with me, and I would record the auctioneer like at the cattle sale or the horse sale. And then I would go home and I would listen to it over and over and over and over again
Yeah, man.
until it started kind of making sense to me, because my dad, or my grandpa, they'd be like, hey, you know what he's saying? I'm like, no, no. And they would kind of coach me along as they were listening to him. And then, yeah, so that's how I learned. And then now it's just kind of like, it's like me and you having this conversation right here whenever I hear an auctioneer, because it's,
Well, 100%. And you're a little hipper with what we're saying than some of the, average car dealers. And you can tell you had that experience growing up.
yeah.
You can definitely tell auctions run deep in your roots.
Well, and it's like, even was it last week or something, like there comes a point where like I can just look at you and we can literally, like, it's like almost like telepathic.
As an auctioneer up on the microphone, you can definitely almost tell when a guy's interested, by
Yeah.
body language and stay. And I've been selling you cars now long enough. I kind of know if I have a good looking car in front of me, and if it's your style of car, I pretty much tell you're going to be on it. And as an auctioneer, you make my job easier. So we appreciate that you are knowledgeable.
Yeah, let's get into a little bit about that, because obviously that's, my purpose too is education. So, Bicon, the training course I built,
Hmm.
you've helped me on the auctioneer side of that, building out that course. And what it's about is to educate the people that have never been in the business, how to buy cars, how to recondition cars. And most people buy cars at auction, and that's one segment that is very important, because at an auction you can either make it or break it. And it's like, if you don't know what you're doing, I've seen it work both ways. Auctioneers for the most part, are all good guys and honest guys. But I have run across a few in my life that are, they can take advantage of a situation, and especially if somebody's new in the business. I've seen that happen before. Not just in a car auction, but in different types of auctions.
That's
that
that's why, as an auctioneer, integrity is probably one of the most important things you can have. I mean, having a good chance important, showing up on time is important, but just having integrity with the way you conduct yourself throughout the auction process and building that rapport with the buyers and the sellers. Because, like I said, I work for the guy selling the car or the guy selling the merchandise, but I still have to have a guy that wants to buy the merchandise. And
right.
so, just building a good rapport and trust line with those guys is probably the most important thing about
Well,
you have to have integrity.
it's like you said too. You're getting paid to put deals together, and to put deals together, it takes a buyer and a seller, right?
Hmm.
So if you're not taking care of the buyer, which you can easily manipulate them, or if you didn't have integrity or doing it the right way, there's many ways that, especially a new buyer, it's kind of like anything. If you don't take care of somebody and you do them dirty or do them wrong, they ain't gonna come back for more.
100%.
So the whole point to an auction is, and this is the successful run auctions like the ones you mentioned earlier, and what I like is a lot of the independent auctions because they know it takes a buyer and a seller. Some of the bigger auctions and the corporate auctions, all they care about is the sellers. They don't care about the buyers.
And for the viewers out there, we're talking strictly right now dealer auto auctions. For the viewers out there, yeah, we're talking dealer auto auctions. But because there's definitely a difference in a dealer only auction and then a public auction,
Right.
and especially in the car business.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, that's yeah, because I tell people, and that's why I built the program too, is when you get into the dealer side of it, people think that I want to get in the car business. I'm just going to go to the auction, and they just got all these great cars there, and they're just giving them away at like half price. Nothing can be further from the truth. What I tell
Let me ask
people
you.
is,
Let me,
you're like
Greg.
swimming with piranhas.
100%. Let me ask you that. What's the process of getting your dealer license to actually sell cars in the state of Florida or some of these other states? Is that a long process?
That's part of the problem too, is in the past, it's literally too easy to get your license.
Okay.
Like uh, they just started a dealer school, dealer class. Even it's not very in-depth or elaborate, but at least it's something. It's kind of a step in the right direction. But in the
100%.
past, you literally had to have uh, insurance, a bond, a place of business, and a phone
Hmm.
number and a sign and pay your license fee, and there you go.
Yes, sir.
And it's almost kind of like, I would say, give the equivalent to a comparison would be like if I wanted to be a airplane pilot, commercial airplane pilot, and it was that easy.
I got you. Yeah, yeah.
You
It's
know what
very,
I mean?
very
Because it's
dangerous.
very dangerous.
And
So
I
that's
mean,
why that's
the
why you
auto
see.
auction, the auto auctions, the prices, it sets the price for the whole market in the car business. I mean, don't get me wrong, new car sales affect it, but in my opinion, the used car market and what the auto auctions generate, that's probably the biggest form of income in the car world, I would think. I could be wrong on
Well, and yes, and what you say about that creating the market is true too. This is why it's my purpose to educate
that. Hmm.
dealers and educate people that are buying cars, because the more educated that you are about how to buy a car, and especially at the auction, the better it is for everybody. Because the problem is you get so many people, there's this churn of new people, and you've seen it forever. You can always tell who just got their dealer license and who just showed up to the auction, and you can just, like, they stick out like a sore thumb. And
Yeah,
a
they do.
lot of times they don't last. And the problem is they come to the auction, they don't know what they're doing. They're bidding up cars that they shouldn't bid up the prices on. Now that raises up the cost of cars, and it really hurts them and it hurts everybody. And the problem is that those dealers just keep coming. Get in business, go out of business. Get in business, go out of business. So the more educated the buyers are and the dealers are, the better it's going to be for all dealers, because then it's going to put the pricing where it needs to be for everybody to be successful. And at the end of the day,
100% correct.
if
100%.
everybody's making money, everybody's happy, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you mentioned two things, like public auto auctions and then the dealer auctions. We've been, specifically talking about the dealer auctions, right?
Hmm.
So you also used to work for Mecum. So
Yes,
everybody's
sir.
pretty familiar with like Barrett Jackson and Mecum, these big classic car auctions that become really popular, especially now that they're on TV and all that type of stuff. Give us a little insight and kind of context to those because people see those on TV and they're just like, wow, like give
It's
everybody a little
in
insight.
in person, it's exactly like watching it. You walk in, and it is a oh wow moment. I've been to maybe one Barrett Jackson sale, so I can't speak so much on them. But the Mecum sales, it's like walking into a rock concert mixed with auto auction. And I mean, there's family fun. They have booths set up outside, and they do Dodge thrill rides where they drift you around the track and stuff. Man, there's so many things to do for kids, your family. That's an exciting deal. On the auction end of it, it's a completely different animal than the dealer auto auctions. The pace at dealer auto auctions is very fast. We sell a car about every 30 seconds at a dealer auto auction. At Mecum or one of the classic car deals that are throughout the country, sometimes it might take you 5 minutes to get the deal done and get the car sold. So just completely different, but it's very exciting, very energizing. Mecum was great to me. I got to see a lot of cool parts of the country, lots of cool cars, met a lot of cool people. Some of the guys and ladies that work for that company are the best at what they do in the business, all the way from the people that push the cars across to the auctioneers. And so great company, very exciting, very fun company.
Yeah, that's it never really hit me until you said that, but yeah, the pace is definitely like from 30 seconds, you know, you're just clicking these cars through the car auction
Yes,
at the
sir.
dealer auctions versus well and I guess it's all kind of relative too because at the car auctions for the dealers, you can sell $500 car up to, you know, what, couple 100,000, right? And then at Mecum, you're not selling no $500 cars.
I mean, depending on the day, especially on the longer auctions like the Kissimmee, I mean, on those first couple of days, I mean, we sell motorbikes for 1,000, 1,500, 500. But
Okay.
that's the cool thing about Mecum. They'll cater to a guy that wants to spend 1,000 all the way to 1,000,000. And so on some of those beginning days, matter of fact, my father-in-law, he sold what was it, a old Ford Crown Victoria, like an 87 model. He sold it there for like 3 grand or something, just to have fun.
Wow.
Yeah, so they'll take any consignment. You have to get in touch with them, months before the auction to consign your vehicle and stuff. But yeah, they'll pretty much take anything, man, and they'll have the company and the means to actually get your car sold.
I guess that is kind of the difference between like a Barrett Jackson and a Mecum.
Like I said, I can't speak so much for Barrett just because I haven't been there, but I do know that Barrett they have a lot of more celebrity buyers and sellers and stuff, which Mecum does too. Like I said, I can't really speak on them so much because I don't know.
What's the
That's
most
something
what's
that's something I would actually like to get to go do is go to a couple more Barrett auctions and check them out.
what's the most expensive car you've seen sell at Mecum auction?
The most expensive one I've seen sold would have been a Ferrari for 30 million. I believe it no sold though, so that's one of the most expensive ones I've seen come across the block. Probably a $15 million Ferrari or something like that I've seen sold in Kissimmee. We've also another cool one. We had the Bullet Mustang from the show Bullet Steve McQueen drove. I want to say that was I can't remember, man. It's been so long now, but 3.5 million, something like that, 3.5 million, I believe. Yeah, man, a lot of cool cars, a lot of cool stories. Mecum does a good job at putting the family that owns the car and telling the story before it crosses the block and marketing that and marketing the story. They do a fantastic job at that. Their marketing team is unbelievable.
What's the did you ever do any auctioneering at Mecum or just work in the ring?
They were good about letting the ringmen that work the ring get up during what they call road art. So it's automobilio like old signs or old gas pumps, neons, that kind of stuff. They would rotate throughout the days and let different ringmen get up and practice their auctioneering there. Because when you get up there, your heart starts and them bright lights hit you, and there's 20 ringmen out there working the ring. So you really can't. It's not like when you're on the auction block, you can see pretty much everybody. When you're up there, man, them bright lights, you can't really see nothing. So you're dependent on them ringmen. So it was good practice. It was fun. So yeah, I got to sell there probably 2 or 3 times, and it was fun. It was a good time.
Cool. Well, yeah, let's talk about that a little more so somebody that was maybe wanting to get in the business, right?
Mhm.
They would want to start as a ring man. You know, how would
You can
somebody
even
go about that?
we have a couple of people that work with us that you might know, that started actually as drivers. We've had people that started all the way down. The guy that just won the World Automobile Auctioneering Championship, the Auctioneer, Dustin Taylor, I believe he started as a driver at his dad's auto auction. The guy, Mr. Kurt Rinkert, that auctioneer is over with me on South Florida and on Friday. He started as like a lot guy, working the lot back in the day at one of the auctions down South Florida and worked his way up. There's a couple of people that I'm friends with that started out as clerks and worked their way up, so you got to you don't just go straight for the microphone. I'm sure some people have came out of auction school and went straight for the microphone, but you can work your way up. If you're interested in doing it, the best thing to do is just go to one of your local auto auctions or give them a phone call and tell them what your interests are and who you are and about you and what, maybe give them a little resume and ask them if you can come and check it out and see if it's something you'd want to do. It's really not that hard of a process to get involved and get in. It's one of those things you have to have the door open for you or anything like that, and you just get the ball rolling, and everything else will fall in place usually.
So even becoming a ringman, there's kind of even a process to that.
Usually, you're brought in by an auctioneer. Is how it
Yeah.
works. An auctioneer will recommend you. So if you're wanting to be a ringman, you can go to auction school, and that would be a great way to learn. Or get in contact with one of your local auctioneers, even if he's down at the livestock auction or selling the local farm auction down the street or real estate auction, whatever it is, get in contact with them and tell them, that I would love to come ring and start learning how to do that. And a lot of guys you'll find are willing to train you and teach you. And, that's one of my favorite things to do. I've helped train and teach a couple of people along with my uncle that are really, really good in the business. And I enjoy that more than it's almost like when you're fishing and you'd rather see somebody else catch more fish than you. Same kind of thing. Same kind of thing. I enjoy that more than anything. And you're giving back a little bit. The business has been good to me. The car business, but the auction business in general has been really, really good to me. So it's good to get.
That's the one thing that I can say that I enjoy about the business and the auction, going to the car auctions especially, is just that, the relationships. All the ringmen are super nice. All the auctioneers are nice. Like, and it's like they're, it's not too many situations where you have a business or you're doing business that like the people you're doing business with. And, I kind of look at it as like, hey, we're doing business together because you're an auctioneer, that, turn into friends, turn into family. Like you just recently got married and
Yeah,
I
you were
was
at
at
my
your
wedding.
wedding. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. No, I definitely look at you like a buddy, and it's amazing how a lot of these relationships start. Going back to getting into the business, that's probably we're in a relationship business.
Yeah.
We're in a people business. Even if you're a car dealer, like you get a lot of recommendations or something from other car dealers that are in your line of work. So networking is probably the most important thing as far as when you're first getting in. Is just going out, shaking hands, meeting people, asking questions. Don't be scared to ask questions. But yeah, me and you definitely became good buddies just from selling cars. When I first started working down in Florida, I'd see you twice a week, I believe, because you were coming down on Wednesday.
Yep.
And my uncle was like, he's one of the good guys. And I was like, okay. And then I found out we had some mutual auctioneering friends from out west, Missouri and stuff like that. So, like I said before, auction world's a small intertwined world.
Yep. So yeah, tell that story because it's interesting. You're originally from Alabama, or
I was born in Alabama and then raised in North Carolina. And then I
then
moved.
how did you end up in Florida?
Okay, so I worked auto auctions and some auctions there in North Carolina for a little bit, and then ended up going through a divorce and moved down to Florida, and that's where I met my now father-in-law. He was working with me at an auto auction up in North Carolina, Speedway Auto Auction, and
Okay.
and
See,
he was like,
I didn't know this part either.
"Yeah, man." Yeah, I was ringing there, and he was like, "Man, if you ever, wanted to make a change and come down to Florida, we'd love to have you." I was like, "Well, Mr. Ronnie, I would love to, man, but I don't have nowhere to stay." And he was like, "Well, buddy, you can come stay with me for about a week or two." And I was like, "Okay, I'll do that." And in my mind, I was going to get an apartment as fast as I could, and I stayed there for about a week. And the first week I was there, they went out of town. So here I am, moved in this new house, and the people just leave. And then so the next weekend after that, we had like a little cookout and stuff. And then I'd already met Katie at a Mecum. He had brought her to a Mecum, so I already had eyes for her. But then I got to actually meet her and hang out with her that night, and then the rest was history. And he didn't fire me, and he didn't kick me out. We moved in together a couple months after that, and then just got married March 8th.
So for the audience, because I know you and I know your father-in-law and I know your wife and I know everybody. So for the audience, this is how things can happen, right? So You're working an auction in North Carolina. One of the
Hmm.
auctioneers there, he's from Florida, right? He's like, hey, come stay with me. That once again, that just shows you like, because I remember when I first came to Florida, and you mentioned Kurt earlier. Like Kurt was one of the first guys I met, and I was traveling then still. I was still going back and forth, and I was living in a hotel a lot. And he's like, hey man, come stay at our house if you want.
Oh, he's a good guy, man. He'd give you the shirt off his back. Good
And
guy.
and
I work
just
with his son Brett Rinkard twice a week, and he's a damn good ring man. Really
yeah.
good, man.
So that just goes you the type of people that are in this business, which I love. But
Mhm.
yeah, so your now father-in-law at the time, he's like, hey, come stay with me.
Yes, sir.
And next thing you know, his daughter and you guys get together, and yeah.
We waited probably a month or two to tell him because, like I said, I was scared he's gonna fire me. But so he was cool with it. Everything was fine. And like I said, he didn't fire me. But yeah, we waited a little bit to tell him. But Ron Reed and his wife, Miss Haley, man, they're great people. Great people. Been good family to me, and great people. Couldn't ask for better in-laws. And I'm not just saying that. I know everybody says that, and I'm really blessed on the in-law department.
Well, and I've known Ronnie longer than I've known you, and yeah, he's A
what
plus, and
what you see
yeah,
is what you get. Yeah, what you see
yeah,
is what you get. And then
yeah.
my wife, she actually works full time with Mecum. Katie McMichen. Yeah, she's full time block clerk for Mecum, and she does like catches the internet bids. You'll see her on TV, and she'll go yeah, and she'll hold her hand up. So you'll see her on there a whole lot if you're ever tuning in and watching it. I think they just went to ESPN Plus, I believe.
Okay.
If anybody wanted to ever check it out, yeah, Mecum on ESPN Plus.
I look forward to having her on the show sometime.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
What was
she
you
would love to do it.
was you telling me earlier? She's so when you say block clerk, kind of explain to people what a block clerk does.
Okay, so before the days of computers and the internet, the block clerk would have to write down the price and who we sold the car to. And usually it'd be on a two sheet of paper. So where one sheet was the office copy and one sheet was the buyer's copy. And you'd have to come sign it and agree to the price. Nowadays, since computers have taken over, they enter the buyer's number and how much we sold it for manually with the computer. And then also they take the internet bids. So if you can't make it to the auction today and you want to buy 5 cars, you just log in on the under your dealer's license on the website, whatever auto auction you're at. And then when you click the button to bid, she sees it and gets my attention and lets me know that it's in. It's probably became just as important as the ringman. The clerks nowadays, the way the business has moved, they're just as important as an asset and a value as the ringman is. They are ringmen. They're internet ringmen, and I'm fortunate enough I get to work with my wife once a week, and it's fun. It's a great team. She knows what I'm gonna say before I say it, and then if I mess up, she looks at me. She keeps me
She can
straight.
also give you an elbow too.
She's good at that, man. But somebody has to keep me straight. It's a full time job. But man,
So yeah, that's another entry into the business too. If
100% is
somebody,
clerking.
yeah, because there's even
I mean, she gets to travel all around the country doing it, and I mean, they make good money. They're just like us. They're contract labor, And we work for companies, but at the end of the day, we're still our own boss, And so it makes it fun, man. You get to see
did
the
you say
world.
she was going to possibly go to auctioneer school too?
Yes, sir. She's interested. Well, we want to start our own auction business and get our
Uh,
own auction business going. And I'm wanting to get more into some online auctions and trying to start an online, maybe like a vintage music equipment auction or something like that. And
yeah,
I really would like her help in if we start a business. And auction school is a great way to get introduced to the lingos and the way the business side of things work. And then you can also get the stage fright off and start developing an auctioneering chant and learning how to be a ringman. So I think her next step is, of course, she loves clerking, but she might start getting into the ring a little bit and starting to help me ring and start our business and stuff like that. And if not, that's fine too. But I think her going to auction school would be very, very great for her developing her career further down.
yeah. Because there may be another misconception too that this is a male only business.
I tell you what, some of the best auctioneers and ringmen I know are female.
Yeah. So it's ring person, not
No,
ring
that
man.
just like if you're a fighter pilot, right? If you're a fighter pilot, you have a
Yeah,
wingman. You
yeah,
have a wingman. So it's the same
yeah.
thing. Most females that I know, they're especially in auto auctions and cattle side, they like to be called a ringman because that's what they are. They're the auctioneer's wingman. At Mecum, they call them bidder assistants. Bidder assistants because you have to be a little more politically correct, especially being on, TVs and stuff. They're called bidder assistants.
So
Most of the people I know and females I know, they'd rather be called a ringman.
So explain that a little bit more because so you got 2 trophies. You only got one. You only got one in the picture, but you got
There's
one.
another one. It's actually holding my phone up, believe it or not, so I could do this podcast with you.
So there's the ringman competition, and then there was
Mhm.
the team competition, right?
Yep. There's 3 different divisions. There's 4 lanes, and so you have a preliminary round and then a finals round. Okay, so you get 3 cars, and they bust out the auctioneers in 2 lanes and the ringmen in 2 lanes to start. And so after they get done with the ringmen, they go to the teams in those other 2 lanes while they finish out the auctioneers in those other 2 lanes. So everybody gets 3 cars in each lane, and then after those cars, the judges. I think there's a set of, I want to say 5 judges, 5 or 7 on each lane. And then after the preliminaries, they all go down to one big judging panel, and then you get another set of 3 cars. So in the auctioneering deal, they take the top 15 for the finals. In the ringman deal, they take the top 8, and then in the teams, they take the top 8 into the finals.
Explain a little more for the audience about the importance of the ringman because you did the one with Blake, right?
Yes, sir.
You did the team. So the team one is the auctioneer and the ringman.
Yep, and then you're judged together, how you talk, how you work together, your communication. I wish I had it laid out in front of me because they tell us what they judge us on, but they also judge you on your appearance, your block presence, that kind of thing. It's
So
broken down into different categories.
Explain that relationship and what makes a good auctioneer ringman combination and how that can impact the auction.
Well, I mean, the ringman's probably he's one of the biggest assets to the. I'm not gonna say the biggest, but he's definitely a big asset to any auctioneer, or she is a big asset to any auctioneer. Just in the fact because when you're up there on the microphone, if you sell something to somebody and you can't see, or you can't get their bidder number, or they don't know they bought it, they walk off. You can't just unplug and then go get them. So the ringman is an extension of myself, and so they're very very highly important tool to the auction method. They can make or break an auction. There's some auction companies, I'm not going to name any out there now in the dealer auto auction world, that don't use ringman anymore, and they're just costing themselves money is all I can say. At the end of the day, the ringman can put deals together. Most ringman, I'm not going to speak for all of them, would make usually decent money. I'm going to say around $500. But they sell one car, they pay for themselves. One
Right.
car. And you can't tell me any ringman in the country can't put one. So some of these auctions that aren't using them, I hope that one day they come back and start using them again. And it's just a very, very highly valuable asset that they're not using. And it's a in-work training program. There's not many businesses where you can, talking about moving up as an auctioneer, where you can have somebody working, as a ringman that's getting trained to eventually be an auctioneer. And if that auctioneer is ever sick or something happens, wants to go on vacation, the ringman can move up. It's like a training course built within their daily job. And that's hard to find in businesses where you can train people without costing yourself anything.
That's something I'm on the same page with you. I can't believe there's some auctions out there that don't understand the value of a ringman, that they've literally done away with them. To me, is just mind blowing. But those are kind of some of those same auctions that we kind of referenced to earlier that really don't care about the buyers either. You know what I mean? Let's say they're more corporate, but I've always felt that because, well, I grew up a ringman.
Yeah.
I mean,
100%.
at our horse auction, I was a ringman from 12 years old on up till 18 when I started my car business. It's the auctioneer, he can only see so much. I mean that's the other thing. The ringman's an extension of eyes and also hands. I've even heard this auctioneers be like, touch him.
Yeah.
You know what I
Go
mean?
let them know he's out.
Yeah. So they're there not only to assist the auctioneer, they're there to assist and help the buyers. Plus, they're guiding traffic. I mean, the ringman's got a lot going on. You know what I mean?
100%. And you got
It's
to
not
watch
like
yourself, not get ran over by a car, or if you're
yeah,
working a cattle auction, not get hit by a bull.
yeah.
There's a lot going on. 100%. And then you're in communication with the clerk. And like I said, they're just as big of an asset now as they ever have been. So I have two people there that when I'm up auctioneering, that are my right hand people. Whether it's a guy or a girl. They're my right hand people. So I mean, I could do my job without them. Do I want to do my job without them? No. Can I do my job better without them? No. They definitely make me better, and they make any auction company better. There is some rumors in the street that they're going to try to start maybe bringing some ringmen back at some of these auto auctions and say they're apprentice auctioneers, and so there might be some way to do that and get it passed by corporate. We're not sure, but that would just be lovely, because I mean, including myself, I was one of the lucky few who could transition from, because I ringed every day of the week, and I've been ringing since I was 18 years old, and I put a lot of passion and love in it. And so when COVID happened, a lot of guys lost their jobs, and in the ringman side, and they either had to transition it as an auctioneer to keep work and keep their families fed, or they had to find something else to do. I have one of my really, really good buddies. He had to go into selling cars. He still rings a couple auctions a week, but he had to go into selling cars. So
yeah, and
hopefully they'll figure it out and bring them back, because, like I said, it's a valuable asset that has a training course built within it. Like it's a no brainer to me.
Well,
but I'm just a dumb country boy from Alabama, though. So what do I know?
and I'm just a dumb country boy from Kansas. So what do I know?
We're just doing a podcast, man.
So so let's talk more about the technical side of it, right?
Okay.
Well, when an auctioneer is going, talking 900 miles an hour, what's that called? Chatter?
A chant. Okay. Yeah, you develop a chant. Every auctioneer has their own chant. When I first got in and started, and I still use the same filler words, they're called filler words. So it's just, you got to learn your numbers, of course. So if you go to auction school, if you first start apprenticing or practicing, that's the first thing you learn is how to count to 100 and 100 back, forwards and backwards, and learn your numbers and different increments. And then you can start adding in what are called filler words. So I started off with I'm going to bid was my very first filler word. And then I would say, would you give? And so now that turned into how much to bid, what to give? And you just chop it up over the years. You you develop your own cadence. Not one auctioneer sounds the same. Everybody has their own filler words. They like to use their own chant. And as you develop it, it could turn into I'm gonna bid, what to get 2,000 and one. I'm gonna get one, but you give 21. I'm going to bid now one, now two, and three. And you can just slow it down and speed it up.
So when you go to auctioneer school and they're going through the process, do they let you come up with your own filler words and to come up with your own chant? They give you like examples? Because I'm with you. Like every auctioneer that I've ever met, no two sound the same.
So when I first went to auction school, I'd already kind of had in my mind some words I like, and they give you a list. So say if you're new to the auction world and never have ever thought about practicing, they give you a list of different filler words. Some of them can be anybody want to give, or money. You can go money, 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 or you can use dollar now, dollar now, dollar now, dollar now, dollar now, dollar now, dollar now. Anybody want to give? There's a ton of different ones. You can get them at, bid them at, put them at. I mean, there's just all sorts. Anything that can create a rhythm.
So break it down. You don't have to give us the whole school, but break us down. Give us kind of a little overview. So how much of the filler word and then the dollar sign, and then how much of the filler word and the dollar? How do they kind of teach you that? Because that's what a lot of people get confused about. They're like, how much is he saying? Because the filler words, and he may say the dollar, but there may be a lot more filler words. So kind of give us a little bit of how that works.
Where I went to auction school at a Worldwide College of Auctioneering, the first thing they taught us was slow is fast and clarity. Because if you can't understand where the auctioneer is at, then you're not going to bid on it. So, I mean, you have to be able to understand them. Slow is fast, and then clarity is the first thing they start hammering into your head. And then there's the schools usually taught, just depending on where you go to school. There's schools all over the country. There's a couple here in Florida, I believe. They'll lay you out a formula, whoever's teaching the school, probably what they use, or maybe a different instructor, and then you can start, developing a formula of what you want to use, where you're going to add the increment or the number or that kind of thing.
So give us a little. You rattled her off there pretty fast.
They also teach you a bunch
Start us out slow. Let's say I'm a beginner.
I can do that. Well, they
Yeah.
also teach you a bunch of tongue twisters, and that's a
Ah,
good way. That's a good way to develop, your rhythm and your chant and stuff. And some of them are like Tommy and Tadmus pick two T's, tied them at the top of the two tall trees. But my favorite one was it's called Engine number 9, but it includes the numbers. So you can start practicing your auction chant like that. And it goes 10, 10, 20, 20, 30, 30, 40, 40, 50, 50, 60, 60, 70, 70, 80, 80, 90, 90, 100, 100. Engine number 9 running down the Chicago line. If that engine jumps its track, you will get your money back. 90, 90, 80, 80, 70, 70, 60, 60, 50, 50, 40, 40, 30, 30, 20, 20, 10, 10, and just doing that, repeating your way back up and down. And then that'll help you develop, like a rhythm or a cadence. And there's multiple other tongue twisters you can use. A lot of them I'm not good at just because my southern drawl gets in the way. But that was the one I liked the most. Engine number 9 running down the Chicago line. If the engine jumps its track, you will get your money back. 10, 10, 20, 20, 30, 30, 40, 40. And it just develops your rhythm. And you work your way all the way up to 100 or to 100 and then back down.
and then how do you? So obviously, it's like you said, it's getting that dialed in, and then before, because everybody thinks you're going to go really, really fast, right? And you can't just go fast. You got to work your
No.
way up to that because you want to be clear too.
100%.
So
100%.
what's that process? Is it just like anything? The more you
It's just
practice, the
practice.
get time, right?
Yes, sir. I started practicing to do this, like I said, when I was 14. I'd be riding down the road with my uncle, especially after I got my learner's permit. I'd be hauling the, truck and trailer with the horses or the cattle on it, and he would start teaching me, and I'd sell fence posts or road signs. And so every time a road sign, would you give 100 now? 100, give me 100, give me 100. Would you give 100 and then now 2 and 3? And just start practicing as that goes. And so just finding time to practice. I drove anybody that was around me, like my dad or my stepmom or at the time, whatever girl I was dating at the time, I'm sure I drove them up the wall. It's just like learning a new instrument. So
Right.
same kind of deal. But yeah, just practice, man. Put in a lot of practice, and you got to have a passion for it. My dad taught me a long time ago: if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And I know that's a cliche saying, but it's 100% true, man. I have a passion for it. I practice every day. Every day I go to work. I've been doing this now, like you said, close to 20 something years. And every day I go to work, I learn something new.
Yeah.
And so you just got to have passion for it and just put into work.
That's if you're going to be good at anything, you got to be a constant student. You got to be
Mm.
constant learning, especially nowadays. Things change so much. That's I have a foundation, like a core of process of inspecting cars and buying cars. But if you're not constantly learning the technologies, the different, I thought about that once. What's your take on that?
Well, that's
Something
exactly why I go to the contest,
yeah,
to keep me sharp. Because you ever hear iron sharpens iron, right?
yeah,
And when I go to these contests, I'm surrounded by the best at what we do and all my peers. And I'm sure there's a ton of guys that don't go to these contests that are just as great. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm surrounded by guys that I look up to and I've idolized over the years, and I learned something from. I'll pick up a little bit from this guy and then a little from this guy, or just learn something how to handle yourself. One of the guys, past champions, got up this past time and they're in Phoenix, and he said, you got to live every day like a champion. You can't just be a champion one time a year after you win this deal. You got to live every day like you're a champion and be a kind person, be somebody that people want to be and do business with, and that kind of deal. So, I learned a lot from just doing that kind of deal, and that keeps me on my toes and sharp for my business.
So what do you think? What do you see is the biggest change you've seen in the business, and then what do you think's like stays the same?
Biggest change in the business. Are you talking auction business or car side or just auction business?
Auction business itself. Like, what's the biggest
Mine,
change you've seen since you've been in the business?
internet,
Yeah.
internet. Yeah, internet. The internet is predominant now. But I also believe that live auction method, the way of live auction methoding is it's true price discovery. And so I believe that will stay consistent for years to come. People will always need auction. But if you have something to sell and you can put a group of buyers together, the live auction format's the best. And I mean, I'm all for online auctions also, but I like the ones that conclude include a live auction also. So you can have an online platform and then you have a live auctioneer also calling the bids. I feel like that's if I had something to sell and I had a lot of assets and just whatever they were, that's the way I would want to sell.
When COVID happened, it forced pretty much everybody to go online. It's called simulcast is what it is, online
Yes, sir.
simulcast.
Yep.
And I hated it.
Yeah.
I
It took what guys like me and you are good at, the relationships, and it threw it out the window. And you're a good sharp car guy, and I mean, guys still want, or ladies, they still want to. People want to touch the cars. They want to put their hands on the car, see the car. Yeah, and I mean, the condition reports and all that are great. And I mean, it's a useful tip for the buyers that they can use at any auction. You know, the condition reports and post sales and pre sales and all that. But actually going and putting your hands on the car, it's bar none. And then you have impulse buyers, what I like to call impulse buyers. They see one guy, Joe Schmo, bidding on this car and at $3,000, and they're like, man, that's a good deal. I got to get in. They never even planned on buying that car before they went to the auction. You can't do that online. You know, you wouldn't have an impulse online because you wouldn't know what the car really was. And if you do, you're a brave soul if you do.
That's something that I wanted to talk about, was the emotion, because that's kind of what you're touching on there, is the emotional aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you go to a Mecum or one of them big sales, you get caught up in the emotion in that environment.
100%. You put a TV camera in front of somebody and they're buying their dad's car that passed away in 1970 that he had before he went to Vietnam, or some emotional story like that, man. It's life changing for some people, and just to be able to be a part of that and feed on the emotions is cool.
And a good auctioneer, and this is what I've always said, and a ringman too, they can create that atmosphere too, where the emotions are high or low.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got an auctioneer that's just kind of blah, 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 just kind of going through the motions, dude, it just kind of like lowers the mood in the auction. Versus, like, I love a very high energy auctioneer that's very engaging with the audience or the bidders or the dealers, and an energetic ringman. Like, dude, it gets you blood pumping, gets you going, and what it does is it makes, gets the sellers excited. The sellers want to sell, the buyers want to buy.
100%.
I mean, it works for everybody. Like, what's your input on that?
Well, I think every auction chant should have, a question, a statement, and then a close. It's just like if you listen to music and how a song, or when you read a book, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, or a climax, whatever you want to call it. An auctioneer's chant should have that same thing to keep the buyers engaged. And you can call it rhythmatic also, like change your cadence and your tone sometimes, like I'll go from 81 to now, and you just change your pitch just to keep the guys woke up, especially on long days, and they just keep them woke up.
Yeah. No, that's a separator right there. A good auctioneer, he knows when to slow it down, when to speed it up, when to get a little louder, when to get a little quieter. Yeah, I've always noticed the good ones are really, really good at that.
100%.
Well, give us a little before we wrap it up here. Give us a little chatter. Sell us that trophy there.
Yeah, right. I'm with the on the trophy auctions on. Tell me how went about $100 now two. How with the $100 down two. With the $1 now two now three. With the three now four now five and 600. How with the 6 Greg, you're out. You got to be 600 700 and 8. How with the paid paid all in all done and 8. How with the paid sold 700. Buy con buys.
Well, right on, man. That's awesome. So, hey, if anybody wants to get a hold of Nick, you need anything to do with any auctioneering, you're for hire, aren't you, brother?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can find me on Facebook, Nick McMichen on Facebook, or you can give me an email at McMichen, so McMichen 5032 @gmail.com. And we specialize in any auction you need done. So if you have it, I can sell it.
There you go. Well, dude, it was a treat, man. I love having you. Learn some new things about you.
Thanks for having me on, man. It was an honor. It was a privilege, man. This has been a good time.
Cool, man. We'll do it again. I'll see you at the auction.
Yes, sir. Be safe.